Much better than traditional house material, and you stick around to find out why.
And he's built on Maui already, so he understands about building in Hawaii. He's the real deal.
Okay. Do I speak through this thing? Yeah. Sweet. Is it working? Yeah. All right. Okay. Aloha, everybody. My name is George Rixey, and I'm an architect here on Maui, and I'm also a builder, and I'm also a planner. I don't have any of the knowledge that the previous people here were talking about with how to grow hemp, but I do know how to use part of it. Yay! And actually the reason why, I've been in the building business since I was a kid, so I have a lot of experience, especially about hands-on stuff, like back in the day, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when we didn't really even have power tools. I kind of actually remember that stuff. So having that kind of history, when I stumbled upon the potential use of hemp to create a hempcrete, which is a totally hands-on material. There's no mechanical tools, no electricity, nothing of that kind of stuff. It just really, sort of resonated with me. So that's one reason why I had a big interest in it. Another reason why I had a big interest in it is because, as you all know, this whole valley is now pretty much vacant. And I wanted to show that if there was a viability to grow hemp in the valley as an industrial product, there is actually a use for it here on Maui, and being hempcrete. So the big thing about one of my interests too is in building today and in architecture, we're learning and gaining a lot more interested in sustainable materials, ecological materials, green materials, and they're not out there. It's been a long time before we could even get the industry to start acknowledging the need for that. But it's growing and it's growing, but nothing is going to compare to hempcrete if we're able to do it, because it's 100% sustainable, ecological, recyclable. You can grow it right here on Maui. The biggest challenge with hempcrete now, today, using it here in Maui, is that we have to ship it from somewhere else to get it here. So where I built a couple projects here with the hempcrete, I got it from Canada, which was the best product source and the least expensive route for us to do. But the cost to get it here was equal to or greater than the actual cost of the material. So if we could actually grow it here and process it here, we'd be way ahead of the game. Anyway, so I want to explain to you a little bit about how it gets used. So, well, there's a whole history of how it all got established and understood in building, but I don't really want to go there because that could take a long time to talk through. But suffice it to say that hemp and lime as an admixture for a filler and for a base has been around for thousands of years. It's in the wall in China, it's in historical buildings all through the Middle East and Asia. It's all over the place. And in fact, when I was researching this to try to find the most reputable, most viable, reliable entity to get this stuff from, I got it from a company called American Lime Technologies, which is actually a restoration company in Chicago, and they adapted hempcrete so that they could solve a lot of the restoration problems that modern synthetics could not resolve. Basically, the hemp was in the products they were trying to restore, and when they used the synthetics, it was not compatible in the long run, so things would break apart. So they had to basically break down the compounds of the existing materials to find out what it was so that they could match it again. Lo and behold, there's hemp in it. So that's one of the reasons why they got inspired to use it. So anyway, that's where I got the hemp curd from, or hemp sheave. And I have a sample of this. I'm going to pass it around. You guys probably already know what this is, if you've seen it. But basically, the hemp plant, the industrial part of the hemp plant, you got the stalk, which a lot of times is kind of the remnant. So in Canada, they were trying to get a use for that thing, and their highest product for that, as I understand it, was for cat litter. And then but my friend who's in Chicago, Mario McMeeky, who worked with Canada to try to get them to process the hurd just like that for him, now he can use the byproduct of the hemp stalk instead of just throwing it away. That's what we use in Hempcrete. So anyway, the way that you create it is you take that hemp sheave, that hurd, and you mix it with lime, super hydrated lime, super fine, which is also an ancient building material. You can just pass it around or leave it down.
Is that available here in Hawaii naturally? Or
It was. It's no longer, and it probably is a good idea. It's not, because the way they were using it before was not ecological. As a matter of fact, out on Baldwin Park, just by Paia, there's a point out there. There used to be a lime plant there, but I think they were mining it from the coral. So that's not the best.
Could we use a sifted rock dust of a super fine grain?
I imagine you could, as long as it has a lime component, because when the lime gets wet, it has some kind of action that seals itself and adheres itself. And the miracle with the hemp is the hemp has a unique cell structure whereby the lime, the super fine hydrated lime, penetrates that cell structure. So it creates like a homogeneous hardened material. So another thing that you really need to know about the hemp, and you mix it with water, and you get kind of like a pasty mat, and you use that to pound into a form to create a wall or a panel. So it's kind of like adobe. But you build a form and you kind of pack it in, and you don't pack it in too hard, or else it doesn't have an insulative value. But you pack it in hard enough so that it has a homogeneous value where it can hold on to itself. Okay, so the hempcrete, when it's formed, is an excellent insulator. It's excellent for sound absorption. It's an environmental, I forget the scientific term, but it adapts the environment. In other words, it holds, how do I say this? If you're at night and it's cool and it's shady, it holds, it absorbs that, it acclimates to the temperature. It holds that temperature. And then the next day when it starts getting hot, it's still cool. So when you're inside your house, it's cooling back your house until the evening time, and then then it gets night and it gets cold again. So it's a acclimating environmental control system. It's also highly termite resistant, and it's highly fire resistant. And I've taken a blowtorch to this stuff, and you cannot turn it, you cannot ignite it. So it has a lot of really positive properties. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start handing out some pictures here. It's also, it's not used structurally. It's only for a fill inside the wall. So it's like an insulation for that purpose. But what we used it for, and one of its big benefits is that it's actually, because it's solid and because of its texture and because of its compatibility with limes, it's an excellent base for plaster and stucco. So basically it's the first coat. Like if you were going to do stucco, you'd have a base coat, then you'd have like a scratch coat, and then you'd have a finish coat. But the hempcrete is the base coat. And you can use it on the inside of the house, you can use it on the outside of the house. Another huge benefit of the hempcrete is it's breathable. So back in the day, like I was saying, 40, 50 years ago, houses were breathable. It was before we tried to make them, weather tight, seal tight, for energy conservation or whatever you want to call it. But it's also not very healthy because you have a closed environment where the air can't circulate and it can't breathe. Another benefit of the hempcrete is it's a non-off-gassing material. So most of the materials we use in modern building, a lot of them are volatile off-gassing. Carpets, paints, even treated woods. So a lot of times people, actually one of the big reasons why the first use of this hempcrete in the United States was in North Carolina, and it was from a family whose children were allergic to certain kind of building materials, and he couldn't go to school and this and that. And so they brought the hemp in so that they could build their own house, and then they actually built a school. So now they have a school in North Carolina where children are, anybody who's susceptible to off-gassing, volatile off-gassing, they go there. Anyway, so what you do is you build a frame that is able to receive the hemp as a form that goes in. So this is kind of an example, a picture, and I'm going to pass these around. This is a picture of the American Lime Technologies plant in Chicago, where I had to get a certified course in order to use the product. They didn't want to sell it to anybody who wasn't going to install it to their standard. So that first picture I'm passing around shows where you can adhere the stucco directly to the hemp, but you can also use the hemp as an infill inside, and then you can add different materials on the outside if you want to, like conventional wood or stone, things like that. And I'm going to show you some pictures of that. Here's another. Let's just keep going around in rotation so everybody can kind of see it in a row. That's the picture of the stucco. So you build conventional wood frame building, or it could be post and pier kind of building, but you don't put any plywood around the outside. Like you normally would see a house framed up like this, and then the next thing you see there's plywood all over it. You don't put the plywood on because the hemp is going to take the place. But see those straps, the metal straps? You need to structurally brace it for wind loads. So that's what those straps are all about. And basically, here's another picture of a frame. It's just an open, completely open building. I'll just set this here and they'll go around.
We need someone younger to jump.
Yeah, more pictures with, you want to come? Do you have time to help?
Sure.
Could you just pass those as going? And so the frames is what keeps the lateral bracing is. Now I had to put that stuff together in such a way as to meet the county codes, the Maui County codes. Not only for wind load and for seismic load, but also for insulation. Because in Hawaii we have a Hawaii Energy Conservation Code.
Sorry. Thank you.
So I had to design it in a certain technique to get them to approve it. And so far, the two houses that we did for the Nelsons, Joyce Nelson is right here, by the way. The two houses we did for them are the only two houses that have been permitted by Maui County to do this kind of work. I'm going to pass out, these are details, basic details of how it works. Okay, so then, see this picture here? It's a frame and there's a panel. So what we're going to do is we're going to form up the hempcrete in and around all of these studs. And I built a form on the outside, which you can't see yet, that gets removed. And rather than have more labor to build another form on the inside that gets removed, you could do that and then you could finish it, or even leave the hemp itself as the finish. I chose to put a panel board in there, which is it's a what is it called? Magnesium oxide panel board. So it's actually made out of a natural compound that is breathable. So it's not like drywall, which is not breathable, and it's not like plywood, which is not breathable. It's magnesium oxide panels. So the whole house is going to breathe. Here's what it looks like from the inside with the magnesium oxide panels. Okay, so here's a picture.
That's better than drywall, but probably a lot more expensive.
No, it's not more expensive than drywall. No, it's about the same as drywall. Yeah, it'll be a product that'll be coming soon in the United States. It takes people like the drywall companies. It's going to take them a while to come around to making that, but they'll do it because it is a breathable product and no volatile off-gassing. So here is a picture of, in the forefront are bags of lime, hydrated lime. These bags here, where my finger is, those are bundles of hemp that are in that bucket. And the other bag on this other side is a hemp fiber, which is, how like you have fiberglass insulation? They make a hemp fiber. that does the same thing as fiberglass insulation. And I'll tell you one thing, it's a pleasure to work with that stuff. You could sleep on it if you wanted to. It smells great, it's really soft, it's really easy to install. I also got that from Canada. So
Not itchy like fiberglass.
it's not itchy at all. It's a wonderful material. Yeah. It's like that, but it's what it is. It's when the decortinator machine breaks down the sheave into this herd, these chips. It also breaks it down into a really fine. There are also the real fine dust that comes out of it, and there's also a fiber that gets separated, like strands of hair, and that's what they make the fiber mat out of. It's really nice stuff. Okay, so this picture where there was that wood frame, now you're looking at a trough that's in front of the wood frame. And it's a trough that we built. This is temporary. It's out of we use plywood for the form. We hold it off the wood frame about 3.5 inches. And we start a trough at the bottom of the wall, all along the bottom of the wall. And we start mixing this hemp together. And we're going to put it in that trough. We're going to put it in kind of loosely, and then we're going to pound it down into that trough with sticks to get a certain kind of density.
Do you use a cement mixer to mix the fiber?
Good question. Okay, what this is a paddle mixer. It's not a cement mixer. It's used for mixing stucco and plaster. And it's called a paddle mixer because it has a big rubber blade on it, because it doesn't want to crush, the materials. So it has this big rubber blade on it, which we took off. And the reason we took it off was so that we had more space between the blade and the edge of the bucket. So there's a lot of room so that the fibers and the mix can just flow freely. It doesn't get crushed, it doesn't bind. Yeah. So we kind of had to custom modify that thing. So here's another picture of it. So those buckets, the bottom, those are full of the mixed hemp with lime and water. And we carry those to the guys that are stuffing it into the form. You can also see, here's the bags of hemp, and I think over here are the bags of the lime. Okay, so here's like a whole wall. And this is a stack of probably 5 or 6 lifts of that hemp. See that?
And you have to hand them up on the scaffold.
We hand them up to scaffolds.
It's a lot of work.
It's actually super fun. It's not a lot of work. No, it actually is a lot of fun. It's light. Those buckets are like super light.
It's not like cement.
It's kind of like, you know how you get around and everybody gets around and raises a barn? It's kind of like that. I mean, people are really excited to get in and do this. So we had a lot of people, friends would help him. It was actually a lot of fun. Even Joy did it too. Okay, so after you only let it sit for maybe 24 hours, and then you pull off the forms. And then when you pull off the forms, you get something that looks like this. I don't know if you can quite see it. But
It's kind of like stucco.
yeah, and it's really beautiful, nice finish on it. Now this house, there were 2 houses we did. One was a little ohana. We did that first just to see how viable this was going to be. And then when it proved to be a worthy effort to go and do it, then we did the big house, the main house. And one thing about the main house is it's really pushing the hemp to its limits. Because normally the hemp might just go up as a straight wall, but we have it in sections here, sections there. We have it on second floors that are stepped back. We have it in panels that are under eaves. I mean, we've pushed it to its limit. So here's a picture again. You can see it on 2 sides of the building. And if you look carefully, you can see the forms up on the second floor.
How heavy is it, in comparison to a similarly sized cinder block?
Way lighter. Way lighter. Okay, so as a matter of fact,
And you use oyster shell lime from local, or it has to be a mined lime.
You know, it's a real good question as to what limes and what kinds of herd you could actually use. So these guys that are producing the lime and manufacturing the lime, it's super, super high tech, you know. But who knows what you could actually get away with in terms of its capacity to bind and hold. So, you know,
They
the
sell oyster
opportunity.
shell lime for an amendment
Yeah.
for the garden, right?
Yeah, so the opportunity to experiment
Well, how
is
much
great.
lime per cubic foot approximately? So if you had a cubic foot of that block,
Well, okay. This block has a lot of air in it. Okay, so when it comes around and you see those bundles of bales basically of this hemp, you need one bag for each bundle.
one bag of lime,
One bag. It's like kind of bag you'd see at Home Depot.
like a 50-pound bag.
Yeah, but it doesn't weigh 50 pounds.
Oh,
It's much lighter.
one bag of lime.
It's really light. And so you have one bag per bundle. The bundle is probably 3 by 18 by 18, something like that.
And the weight of that would be...
It's super light. I could throw it to you and you could catch it easily.
Okay.
It's super light.
So how many...
of the Hempcrete paneling?
No, I don't have any panels, but I have a picture on it to show you. So here's another picture of it. Now, there's two, like when you look at this picture really carefully, you'll see the studs. On these other pictures, you can't see the studs on the outside, but on this one you can, and there's a reason why, because rather than putting plaster on that wall, we're facing that wall with stone, and we wanted to have an air pocket between the stone and the hemp, so that if any moisture got through the stone, it wouldn't get into the hemp. No. Yes. Yes. Yep. And in our case, it was flush on the inside. So there's a total of like 7.5 inches of material. Now that's, with Hempcrete, that's about as narrow as you could want to go. No, as a matter of fact, this is the good thing about it. It goes directly to the wood, it adheres to the wood, and if the wood is entirely encased with a termite-resistant substance, then the wood is protected. It has a lot of positive benefits.
It doesn't shrink away from the wood.
No, it sticks to it actually. It doesn't shrink. No, there's so much air inside, it just solidifies in place. No. I don't think we can do that here yet on Maui.
We can.
Yeah. It will. Yeah, it will happen. It's going to definitely happen. Do it. Yeah. Just do it. There you go. Here's another picture.
So it looks like it's shredded.
Can you pass her that bucket? You saw that? Yeah, check that out.
So that's what gets mixed in.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Maybe she didn't see it. Could you show it? Do you want to look at it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see the bucket full of that stuff? Show it. It's so light. Just go pick it up. So here's a picture of it close up, the finished surface when the forms are down. And you'll notice that there's two different colors. And that's because I used two different kinds of lime. One came from one company and another came from another. I wanted to experiment. Let's see. I should probably stand on this side. Here you go. All right. So this is a picture of the Stucco Finish.
That went over the top.
Yeah. So what you do on top, you two coats of stucco. I don't have pictures of that process, but that very first picture I showed you, the very first picture showed striations of the different layers of the finish coat.
Do you use any color? Like I saw brick, do you use stucco?
Well, here in Hawaii, the most compatible thing that I feel for it is the stucco. Yeah. Well, a number of reasons. One is it's the most breathable, and it's the most durable in a salt environment. So, however, different climates, like going up country, say Kula, 2,000, 3,000 foot level, then it might think about something else. Maybe a wood clapboard on it with an airspace between the two, so that you have more insulative value and more breathing in the materials. Okay, so this is a picture of what you were talking about. I think you were talking about a hemp panel.
Yeah.
So this is in one of the rooms we built the floor and the walls with some hemp panels. And at the time when we were doing it and building that, it was really hard to find that product. And the company that I actually bought that from I think I bought all that they had left. And so there was a number of reasons for it, but it just wasn't an available product for them to use. But now, it's just fascinating how things change. Now there's all kinds of companies, if you go online, that are selling panel board. And it's coming, and they're making all kinds of different kinds of
Pre-made like a sheet of plywood, but it's made out of hemp and lime.
Yeah, and no, it's no lime in that. What they use in that is recycled resins. Okay, so then, just to give you an idea, this is one side of the building. That's the side, the view side, so it's mostly glass. But you can see, if you look carefully, you'll see like there's patches of hemp in very challenging places, up on the second floors, behind roofs. And this is the front of the house. And this is, if you remember, I mentioned that wall that showed the studs in front. The reason why is because we built a air pocket between that stone and the hemp so that it would breathe. And so that's the front of it. Now I wanted to show you guys some stuff that I downloaded, but I don't have the means to do it here. But one of it is a picture of this decortinator machine. And I think I told you they had a state-of-the-art one in Canada right now. It costs like $1.8 million. But it's, it's a huge industrial machine. I think the government financed the thing. But there are also much smaller ones, much sort of like small hand kind, and for maybe $150,000, something like that, that we could use here, but you'd want to hooey up with it. In other words, if you had several farmers that had, maybe 20 acres or 40 acres combined or more, then you'd hooey up with it. If you wanted to use it for hemp, so again, for hempcrete. So again, the hempcrete is kind of like the final end product of the plant. You're going to get all the much higher uses out of the plant with its oils for clothes, and all kinds of stuff, pharmaceuticals, whatever. And the cat litter and the hemp herd is like the bottom of the line. Yeah. But
Use like one of the old macerators from the sugar mill because it was just sitting over there. Like someone put it there, maybe.
I don't know. You'd have to try it. Now I was talking to this gentleman here in the yellow shirt, who told me that he tried to grind some, and because when you grind it, it separates into those three parts: the superfine dust, the herd, and a fiber. So that fiber, if it doesn't get separated, it's just going to bind up the machinery. Probably for a while, maybe, but then after a while, it might get bound up in the fiber. It's possible.
You have to be a 90-degree chipper, unlike the regular chip, which is 45. It has to be 90-degree.
There's probably a piece of equipment out there that's affordable, right?
Yeah, I think there is. If you go online, you'll see all kinds of stuff.
George, I just wanted to mention too that I've done a little research on industrial scale hemp processing. In other words, if farmers really wanted to get serious about professional scale existing fiber processing technology, and the cheapest, if you're figuring in things like expertise, which is necessary for installation and all that, for turnkey fiber processing, starts at around $3 to $4 million and that's for all sides of the plant, vast, herd at all different calibrations, et cetera, et cetera. 3,000 acres feeds that.
Yeah, you need a mass amount of acreage.
And that's that's as small as they come.
Yeah, yeah.
Say that again, 3,000 acres?
3,000 acres to run 200 pounds an hour for a 1 year, average work year, right? You're really running it 2 8-hour shifts or whatever it is, 6 days a week. It takes 3,000. I just did the research for a book that I just.
Yeah, exactly.
3,000 acres to feed that year as a year-round thing. So what it would take would be a lot of collaboration among smaller farmers that wanted to form a mutually beneficial co-op just for the fiber.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. Yes. Well, these guys that were before me, like I said, they're the experts. I don't know anything about that. Yeah, I'm sure you're right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the stock is, that would be the remnant. Yeah.
Especially for the herd, the inner core that these guys are talking about. And it's way cheaper if you want to get together and, like you said, basically ramrod out the herd. You don't really care about the bast quality, but you want to get that herd material. You're right, that's way cheaper, way. Like just whatever those things, what does an industrial scale masher like that cost, the grinder?
Yeah.
Sit right over there.
Yeah, you probably check it out. Did you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
How many acres of hemp do we need to grow to make, say, a 3,000 square foot home?
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer.
How many bales did you end up?
But I can tell you, okay, now I can answer that question. Let's see, I had 70 bales to do 8 inches, let's say, thick of, let's see, 30 by 300, 600, 1,000 square feet.
How many bales?
About 70.
70 bales. 50 pound or 100 pound bales?
Oh, these bales are they're like probably not even 20 pounds.
Okay.
They're super light. I have a
Super
picture.
light.
Yeah, can you hand him that bucket?
Yeah, I felt the bucket.
Yeah, I mean,
How big the bale was.
it's lighter than hay.
Right.
Yeah.
How many bags
Way
of
way
lime?
lighter than hay.
Okay.
And how many
And
bags
it's
of
super
lime?
dry, so it's not heavy. It's completely dried out. Yeah.
How many bags of lime to go with those 70 bales?
170. Takes a bag per each. It's a 1-to-1.
I took this stuff and I had it in a bowl and I left it outside. It got rained on and it got moldy and it created the most beautiful mold. I mean, it was just like this microbial wonderland. So it's actually really good for developing microbial growth on a
Oh, yes.
yeah, because it's got all this air in between it and for some reason it's perfect for that.
Yeah, and the remedial properties in the soil are outstanding.
I've been making some twine for my hemp, if anybody wants to do this twine and pass it around.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
My mom weaves that.
So,
Yes.
is it possible to treat the hemp with borate to make it acidic resistance? Or
You don't need to.
You don't need to?
Yeah, earlier on, one of the first things I mentioned is it's highly termite resistant.
It is?
It's
Okay.
highly termite
Wow.
What
resistant.
about the mold issue? Mold issue.
There's no mold. It doesn't. It's
Can we put an additive
it's
like
mold. It's mold and mildew resistant. Highly resistant. Both.
Because
But you don't want to get it wet. It's not in a wet environment. It's it's enclosed.
So is it good for rainy climates?
Yes, because okay, how am I gonna?
you're gonna stucco it, you're gonna seal it?
Yeah, the stucco, the super fine hydrated limes that you use in the breathable stuccos with no synthetics, they'll breathe, but they won't let any moisture through.
And you need good eaves protecting those walls.
Well, you would always want to do something like that in Hawaii anyway, You know, it's just sort of common sense from the sun and from the rain.
That's what I was saying, but I was like...
Are you familiar with shotcrete, with hempcrete?
Yes.
Does that, have you?
That's a way you can install it actually. If you just had a backing, you could take like the pump shot and just pack it in. That's one way to install it. Yeah. Actually, when you do it in roofs, that's a really good way to do it on a roof.
You can actually create the roof from that material.
Well, no, you still have to have a structural frame.
Well, yeah, but once you had a removable frame, you could do that and then waterproof it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just like instead of what you saw the pictures between the studs, same thing between rafters. You just shot it up there. Yeah.
So, there's an engineer at UH Manoa, I think it's last name Ma, who's working on kind of 3D printing of a house using hempcrete.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a little way down the line, but
yeah,
they're working on that
oh, cool.
idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah.
So the question is, reinforcement. Because hemp doesn't have a really good tensile or compressive strength, right?
Right.
So the other possibility of using for the framing would be, say borate treated bamboo.
Well, actually, sorry to interrupt, but there's a company in Kentucky that's making hemp wood.
Oh,
it's phenomenal. I can share that later with
yeah.
people. There's a website and everything.
Okay, so you make the
so you can even make the frame
out of hemp. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. But bamboo's cool too.
Yeah, the more and more exposure to this material, the industry just kind of explodes.
Yeah. I mean, bamboo doesn't work real well because it's round, but if it's embedded in hempcrete, it doesn't matter that it's round. Because the top you can square them off.
Right, that's true. I've thought of that myself. One of the things about the bamboo and hemp, though, is that also their cell structures are not the same.
Mm.
And so what you really want is you want the hemp is going to adhere much harder, much easier and stickier to, say, like a regular 2x4 than it would to the edge of the bamboo, because it's such a hard, impervious.
That's closer to what this company's doing. They're doing like planks, like 2x4s, plywood style stuff.
Yeah, you want to sand it down, probably.
Yeah.
To sand up that shiny part.
But what I would like to see is something, if it was made out of hemp, that was more like a 1x1, where you could actually, make frames like though it was bamboo, and almost use it as a rebar kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And then use the hemp around that.
Right.
Yeah.
George?
Yes.
So comment and question. The comment is the big gap to fill, now that we've established the fiber base as being super righteous and regenerative, is our binders and our sealants. And that market is in many ways less developed unless you really want to be educated. So we've been trying on some outdoor stuff, kids' treehouse stuff, testing linseed oil versus hemp seed oil versus a mix for weatherproofing, basically trying to keep things righteous, or using like, I've seen people use hemp-based plastering to waterproof. So part of my question is, can the plastering and the waterproofing be righteous at this point in that natural way without synthetic epoxies? And then the second question is, some hemp builders that I've talked to really care about the dimensions of the herd. I'm curious if you have a favorite herd dimension, or you just work with what comes as horse bedding or whatever.
Okay, but the first question is, so what we used at the Nelson's house is a hydrated lime, which is no synthetics, none whatsoever, because we wanted the breathability for one, but we also wanted the compatibility of the materials. So that's the first part. And then the second question was?
What do you like herd-wise?
I haven't had enough opportunity to do enough projects to get exposed to different suppliers and what they provide. And I'm probably spoiled because what I got from American Lime Technologies, it just worked like a dream. So unless there was another product that could compete with them, I'd probably use them again.
They might not still be a business, by the way.
That's possible.
I hope I'm wrong about this. I haven't heard. But and there's a lot more herd coming online. But so some builders have told me they like everything from some bast mixed in to create even more aeration to those that want ISO compliant, super industrial clean herd that is of this exact dimensions. And I think it probably varies per climate. But by the way, when I was talking about righteous inputs, I was talking about on things like the sealant on wood and stuff like that. We want to get away from the toxics in like press board and particle board
Exactly.
when we replace them.
Someone on here is saying you can virtually build every single component of a home with hemp that could replace PVC with no VOCs.
What's the most practical thing for Hawaii though? I mean, if there was one technique, what would be the best one for Hawaii? I mean, we can do all this stuff, but then the infrastructure is expensive and the imports are expensive. And so what would it be, like plaster? Do you think making a plaster-based product that could be put all over the face of a house would be a efficient way to make a living? Because I mean, it's all about efficiency, right?
Yeah.
What can we really do? Red dirt? Red dirt? Clay dirt?
Chicken, you turn them into eggs.
Maybe that could be our
The question was.
He's also saying simple combine modifications can harvest the plant matter and leave the stalks in windrows.
That's a factor like
Yeah.
Wow. Will you say that again?
He said simple combine modifications can harvest the plant matter of the hemp and leave the stalks in windrows. So it's like you can harvest it and keep your stalks in the ground. You can crimp the stalks using this cover crop still.
Yeah, I wanted to show a video actually of the harvesting of the hemp sheath, and that does exactly that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cool. You should. Do you want to show it? Like, would you like
Well, I don't have a way to show it.
Supposedly, I could try and round up a tech person.
Okay, that'd be cool. I also have a video of the decortinator, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. All right.
Maybe, yeah. If you wanted to check it out, you could go to Canadian hemp decortinator. That's DECORT.
INATOR.
Something like that. I'm sure it'll come up.
It's decortinator?
Yeah, decort. Yeah, I thought it was too, but it's not. It's CORT.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Decortinator.
Yeah.
Decortinator.
Yeah. Yes.
Curious, as a builder, what would you like to see happen so that this could be a viable building element?
Well, number one, I'd like to see that we can grow hemp in the valley suitable for the herd byproduct. And if we were able to do that with enough material, I think that the best use for it would be some sort of affordable housing. And because I like the hui aspect to it, you know, where everybody just comes in. Because it's like you were commenting on, there's a labor aspect to it, but it's easy labor. It's not like strenuous backbreaking. It's just, it's easy. It's light, it's feathery, and it's, you know, it's fun actually. So I think that would be, yeah, that's a vision. And then I'd like to be able to, that's why I was talking about what you were mentioning about, and you were mentioning about the bamboo. I'd like to see a way where the form, we know the form can go vertical and sustain itself. And also there are certain forces of, when you're building a dome, there are certain forces that will balance themselves out depending on the curvature. And I'd like to try to find a place where you could kind of find that balance and see what we could do. Might be kind of a cool house. Yeah.
Have you ever tried to pump it, like when you mix the material, like to pump it when it's wet?
Yeah, that's what she was mentioning. You can shoot it out like a shotcrete, like for a pool, like gunite. Is that what you're talking about?
I was thinking like if you were to mix it in like a modified cement mixer and pump it out, or I guess the gravity.
What do you mean pump it out for what?
Like if you're laying a slab or something, or like when you have your forms in place, like instead of mixing in buckets and hauling up, like could you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you can use a pump, like you know how they gunite a pool frame.
I've never done that.
Okay, so they have a hose hooked up to a pump.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The mix goes into a bucket,
Yeah.
shoots it out. You just shoot it right onto the wall.
And you don't have to wear a gas mask to do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, you definitely could do it that way. Absolutely. Yeah.
market, Audrey Farmers Market, sauerkraut, dried.
So I don't know if he's going to come back with access to the videos.
Yes, Polanski.
They're all coming up on YouTube.
Oh, they are? Oh, cool.
34 minute, 10 minute.
Yeah. The one I like the most is the Canadian one. Canadian Hempcrete coordinator. There's one shot, it's I don't know which one it is, but it's the one with the rock music.
So the home that you built is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
How does the materials compare to like conventional materials? You know, like it's probably I would expect it would be more expensive than traditional.
It is.
Now.
It is more expensive. The main reason why it's more expensive is, as I was explaining earlier, is the shipping. Yeah, that's the main reason.
But like it's pretty comparable. Like you can put up more or less the same amount of I guess wall or construction with a bale and one bag of lime than you would with like traditional concrete.
Well, you wouldn't use concrete. Like it's a whole different animal.
Way easier.
The way the living environment surrounded in a concrete structure is totally different than the living environment in a hemp building.
I guess
totally different.
I guess if we were to produce it here on island, right, is the price comparable when you purchase the materials? You know, if you forget about shipping. To just building a regular home, or is it 2 or 3 times more expensive?
No. So like when we did the Ohana, I think we calculated the Ohana was like 700 square feet, and this is the first time it's ever been done, and we had to import it, and it's also designed in our use for stucco finishes, not like texture 110, T111 plywood, right? So it's a pretty integrified system.
George, sorry to interrupt.
Yes.
Some slides on here.
Oh, all the slides were on the pictures, but there's a online video I got to download.
Oh, okay. Something that's online.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't have Wi-Fi connection.
Okay, that's all right. People can look at it on their phones. I think they can look at it. But thanks. Yeah, thank you. The Ohana, which was about 700 square feet, I would say it was about 5 to 7% cost increase. But that was the first time we ever did it, so it was kind of a learning curve. But then when we did the bigger home, which was much larger square footage, it was more about 3%, maybe 2 to 3%.
And that's when you're looking at, because you're using, it's a different design altogether, basically, and labor and all those things. That's only 3% more.
Yeah. No, it was awesome. Yeah, so it's like I'm saying, it's not. If we could grow it here and actually process it here, a huge benefit from processing it here, if we could, and we could get the insulation fiber. It's like, like I was saying, like fiberglass. If we could grow that here and process that here, that would be huge, because that would replace fiberglass insulation. It would replace foam insulation. I mean, it would replace shipping any of that stuff here. I mean, that would be in itself huge. And the other thing too, in Hawaii, we have an energy conservation code, but depending on the elevation you're at, the requirements are very low. For how much insulation you have to use. So it would be. I think that would be a really good use. Actually, that would be one of the things in the question. Oh, and one other thing too that's nice about this material is we didn't do this, but you can do this. You can put it on the floor. So like if you're living on the ground, and instead of a concrete floor, you can put rock, so it can aerate different degrees of rock, heavy rock and finer rock, and then you can put the hemp on top, and you can finish it with a hard plaster finish. So it looks like, those concrete finishes that kind of have their patina. It'll look just like that, but it's hemp. So it's a great insulator. Yeah.
very few.
Yeah.
And that would seem just like.
So it's a low.
It actually would look way nicer, probably. Pardon?
Yeah, well, I did
Yeah.
tech stuff.
Yeah, and it'd be breathable, and it'd be insulated and stuff like that. So they do that. You know, one thing about Hawaii is, well, where their homes are mostly built currently are in cold, wet climates in Europe, and also where there's not a lot of trees. And that's where you'll find most of the buildings built out of thick walls of hemp. And the reason why, like I said before, is because it acclimates to the environment. So like if you're heating your house with a fireplace overnight, and then the next day it's like cold, your house is still warm through the day. So it's, or vice versa, if you're in a cold environment, and I mean if you're in a hot environment, you make it cool. You get the coolness at night, and then it holds that coolness, and then it dissipates during the day.
So you're saving energy costs too.
Yeah, yeah. So it's much like an adobe home in that regard. You know, kind of has a climatical change. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, you're welcome. Thank you. I'm going to pass, you can look at this book if you want, Building with Hemp. This is from an expert, probably the expert from Ireland. His name is Steve Allen. So I highly recommend you take a look at this book.
I never had so many plans as far as plumbing. Yeah, exactly.